Getting flagged in an SEC exam can lead to enforcement referrals, fines, and the worst of the worst, reputation hits. And unfortunately, the 2026 list looks different from past years under the new administration. But by the end of this video, you are going to know at least the top 5 things that examiners want to see, and honestly, how to prep so that way the inevitable isn't so bad. And I say the inevitable, and I love you all dearly, but unfortunately, they audit 15% of financial firms every single year. So they're coming at some point or another. It's just a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. How are you doing? My name is Harrison Barron from SecureWealthIT.com, and we help financial firms make sure, especially RIAs, make sure that their technology works the way they want it to, but also make sure that they're cyber secure. And when the exam does happen, you can rest easy at night knowing that, hey, everything is taken care of. It is that simple. If you want to learn more about us, you can head over to our website, SecureWealthIT.com. We have a ton of information on there, who we help, why we help, the firms that we help, right? We obviously help RIAs, as I said that there, but broker-dealers, financial advisors as well. And we have a ton of really, really cool resources. If you hover over that resources tab and click down, you'll see all the resources. We have the June 1st evidence kit that you need to go through step by step what's in it, how to use it. It walks you through exactly what you need for Regulation S-P compliance, and to start working on that folder because it's coming. And then also, if you're a new RA, we have a ton of other cool stuff there. We have a new technology checklist you can go through, grab the right technology, so you don't have to sit there and worry, do I have the right stuff? That is all there. I will leave links down in the video description down below if you want to go grab those. I would appreciate that. And also let us know what you think. We've gotten some really, really good feedback on people that are already starting to grab it. So let's talk about the SEC and what they're doing, the division of examinations, who's doing it, what are they doing, and who does this actually apply to? So obviously, if you're an SEC registered investment advisor, they're coming, right? Investment agencies, companies, right? Broker dealers. If you're a clearing agency as well, and if you are a self-regulated organization, you're on their hit list of people to eventually come after, not in a bad way, but for the actual examination. But the thing is the priorities are starting to shift, and Division of Enforcement is moving on the rules, and there's obviously new rules that are dropping all the time, especially Regulation S&P this year. But they're looking specifically for different deficiencies and the way that they're actually going about this. And I want to talk a little bit about the big picture before I dive into the top 5. In 2026, the exam priorities are, like I said, going to be shifting, but the priorities are, because they're shifting, it's because of it's a new administration, and this is the first time since 2021. So kind of right out of that COVID era till now, or better yet, kind of mid-COVID, the priorities have kind of shifted, and what they're enforcing is going to be very different than what they've focused on in the past. So let's dive into the most important things. Number one, cybersecurity. Unfortunately, they are all about cybersecurity. And look, the last thing that anybody wants is a breach to get hacked. You have to write a very awkward email to your client saying, "Hey, we got hacked. This is the data that was currently leaked." This focus has not changed. This has been pretty much the number one focus for at least the last handful of years. But they also are now adding operational resiliency as the new one. So what is that? That's a fancy word, right? So they're looking for policies and procedures are the big ones. And then governance practices. So like, what happens in the case of a breach, something happening, you find out, about an employee's off-channel communications, but they also want to make sure that data doesn't get lost. That's a really, really, really big one. The last thing you want to do is go through your archives and there's missing data, right? That's really, really important. Also, this is more of our term, access control, but basically, I think you could figure it out, right? Who has access to what? Is it somebody new on the team? Do they have access to the same things that the owner of the companies or the firms have? This is really important, as well as account management. And then last but not least, how you respond, kind of what I mentioned before, but how do you respond specifically to cyber-related incidents? And that's kind of a broad bubble, cyber-related incidents, because it doesn't necessarily mean an attack, but it could mean anything cyber-related, whether that's a data leak, which doesn't necessarily mean you were attacked, but maybe somebody left data, an unlocked computer, and somebody was able to access it, a forgotten device, or kind of worse. An employee says, hey, you know what? I'm done. Screw this company and I'm leaving. They might have a company issued device or maybe a non-company issued device. They take that device, walk away, and maybe they're screenshotting things. That's a cyber-related incident, as crazy as that sounds. And also, yes, getting hacked, ransomware, where they lock down your computer and basically extort usually Bitcoin from you. And with the price of Bitcoins, I don't think anybody wants that to actually happen. But the thing is what they specifically want. And they want to review your governance practices, right? Basically, all the documentation saying what you're going to be doing, the data loss prevention, what you are actually doing to prevent data loss, and also how you plan to respond to problems, specifically technology and security problems. That's really it. That's what they want to see. All of the stuff I said kind of covers, but that's what they are specifically looking for, written literature about what they would like to actually see. This is huge. And that's kind of where an IT company, doesn't have to be us, but an IT company or a MSP, a managed service provider, comes in. They are here to help with a lot of that, to break that down, or working with somebody specifically inside your organization to help with this, right? That's usually the biggest thing. And last but not least, one of the worst things that I see a lot of firms make is dealing with vendors. The firm itself doesn't get breached. It's actually the vendor. That's the big difference. So it's not your fault, it's the vendor's fault. However, the vendor has to let you now know within 72 hours of a cyber breach or cyber incident, right? That way you can then find out, start reaching out, begin the levels of communication, letting people know what got hacked, who got hacked, all that kind of stuff. So the second thing that they're cracking down on, I'm sure we're all riding the AI wave. We use it a ton in our business, as I'm sure that you use it a ton in your business, right? But let's talk about the use of AI. Unfortunately, something called AI oversight, and then new cyber threats that are actually coming up. This is the brand new attention this year because I don't think anybody was really ready. Yeah, we were using ChatGPT at the end of last year, and look, it can make an image, and sometimes somebody would have 6 or 7 fingers, right? But now it's really good, and it's only getting better. It is indistinguishable almost in many cases from reality, depending on what you actually pick. So this is really, really important when it comes down to what they want to see, how you're using AI, the oversights, and then also dealing with, unfortunately, new cyber threats. So this includes training and security controls that firms can implement to make sure that, obviously, once again, people have the right access, but also mitigating the potential risks along with people doing that specifically with AI. That's going to be the thing, the biggest thing. And there's a fancy word, it's called polymorphic malware attacks, basically meaning that the attacks are going to be shifting and adjusting based on who you are and the information that they can find. This includes how firms operate and deal with this information or deal with these potential threats. Those are going to be really, really, really important. And I know that you're probably like, Harrison, this is so much information. This is hurting my brain. I get it. I don't write the rules. This is just what they're coming after. And look, you're not going to have to write polymorphic malware attacks, but that's the word that we use in our world, right? There's a difference. Just like you have financial planning, you have custodian accounts, all of that good stuff in your world. Unfortunately, polymorphic malware attacks are something that we use in our world, and ransomware and all that good stuff. Next, they also want to see AI risk assessments being done. This is policies and procedures reviewed somewhat regularly on AI. What's allowed, what's not allowed? Is it a standalone AI, meaning does it talk to anything else or does it not talk to anyone else? And also the firms putting out and having training and education around what is called an acceptable and non-acceptable use of AI. The nice part is you as the owner, if you're watching this as an owner of an RIA firm, you can write that out, but your technology company should be handing you a document that basically says, hey, this is our acceptable use policy. These are all the tools that you're allowed to use. And from what we know, if it's not explicitly listed, you can't use it without permission. Maybe you find something that you want, but you have to clearly write it down. They don't particularly care what you're doing as long as you're obviously not giving AI financial and personal information of your clients, but they do want to make sure that, hey, a employee can't just go out and say, I'm going to get my own version of ChatGPT and start typing it in. It has to be managed by an organization. This is really, really important. And if you don't have an AI use policy yet, just write one, even a short one, just to say, hey, we are allowing, in many cases, Claude has become very, very popular. Grok has become kind of less popular. ChatGPT is still fighting in the game. Microsoft Copilot, especially the enterprise version, is pretty decent at this point. But you have to clearly say that, especially specific AI tools that you use. Jump is a big one. We probably use Jump for voice recording and all of that in our meetings. That's important. These are the things that truly, truly matter. Number 3, they are coming after big time Regulation S-P compliance. Now, if you have $1.5 billion in assets and over, you already had to comply with this in December. If you have less than $1.5 billion in assets, you need to comply by June 3rd, which gives you about a month from the time of recording this video, which is kind of insane how fast time is moving. This is the big new rule. For the fiscal year of 2026, they are adding this on. Now, there's a ton that actually this actually covers. Some of the big things that you need to watch out for is actually making sure that data is written correctly and saved correctly, archived, right? That's the big thing. Breach notifications, written policies is going to be the other one. It's all about protecting customer info or client information. That's one of the biggest things. I have a video already on the channel about what Regulation S-P is, what does it actually cover, and what you need to do. I hope that I've earned a like button, a subscribe button, notification bell, and after this video, you should absolutely go check that out. But Regulation S-P is probably the biggest one, unfortunately, and they have made it a very high priority and let everybody know that that is what they are specifically looking for in this next round of exams that they're going to be putting out. Number 4, never examined and recently registered advisors. They are making a push this year. If you are new on the books, you're a target. Typically, usually you have about 6 to 18 months before you become a target for the examiners. So you have some time to get all of this in line. But if you are new or never been examined, some people I've heard flying under the radar for a couple of years, which is good, but you better have your eggs in, your I's dotted and your T's crossed and your eggs in a row, because the division will prioritize you. And if they're looking for recently registered advisors as well, unfortunately, if you fall in those categories, sometimes, and what I mean by recently registered, and I don't know 100%, but their literature alludes to this. When you first start or you are a new registered advisor, they're coming for you. But sometimes you can ride under the radar for, like I said, that 2 years. You are going to be a top priority. But also, if you're a newer advisor or RIA firm, they typically do that exam in the first 6 to 12 months, or 6 to 18 months, I should say. They are coming back. I don't know why, but they are coming. Look, if it's been a year, you're probably okay, but they might come back as soon as 2 years after your last exam. Do not wait for the letter to arrive. Start tightening up your policies so that way it's not a stress. It's not that hard. Talk to your IT company if you have one. Let them know that this is what's happening. You found a bald guy on the internet who's telling you about this. You want to sleep easy at night knowing that you don't have to deal with this. And last but not least, number 5, fiduciary duty, the standards of conduct, and the compliance program's effectiveness. This is the foundation that has never gone away and never will go away. For investment advisors, the 2026 priorities continue from the prior year's focus, because they talk about it every year, what their next focus is. For CCOs, this priority underscores the need for documentation sustainability. I'm using fancy words because this is what they use on their websites. But you have to make sure that you are doing your due diligence and have clear communications of risks and fees and all of that good stuff. But the new angle for 2026 priorities are specifically new granularity in the division's emphasis, including private credit, wrappers, lockups, and retail channels. I know that's kind of insane, but you have to be aware of those things. So I've given you a lot of information. I've asked for a like button, subscribe button, hopefully a notification bell. But I want to talk about a little bonus area here. I love to give little golden nuggets at the end. What quietly got dropped? Because there's some things that they're probably not going to look for as aggressively. Doesn't mean that they're not going to look for it, but as aggressively. This is kind of a breath of fresh air, but they're still coming, right? They want to look for a couple different things. They omit key topics that were previously highlighted in prior years, such as economic incentives that advisors face when recommending products, preventing marketing rule violation, Form ADV disclosures, and assessments of compensation arrangements. These are really, really big, as well as the valuation of illiquid or difficult to value assets. So if that's something that you were super stressed about, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean that they're not going to look for it. It just means that they're not putting they're not looking so aggressively for it. And some exam priorities from 2025 will remain, such as focuses on private fund advisors. And if you guess crypto, you would be correct. They are cooling their jets on crypto. What I would recommend for you is, just because it's not on this list, it doesn't mean examiners are going to ignore it. Kind of what I mentioned already. You got to be careful. They have their hit list of what they want to see. And look, every year there's constantly new things changing. However, some things they haven't specifically mentioned that were previously mentioned. Doesn't mean that they've forgotten about them. It just might mean that it's not in their scope of what they're looking for this time. Do with that information what you will. This is just what our evidence of what we've seen working with our clients, what we've seen from the SEC's website, and what they've published about what they plan on doing. And the way they word things at this level is very, very important. If it's not explicitly mentioned, it doesn't mean it's not going to be looked at. It just means they might not look so aggressively. They might just say, okay, everything looks good, but we're really focused on this. Good. Everything's got checks and you're good to go. And the bonus advice: if you don't pass with flying colors the first time, you get warnings or things that you have to fix, please look me in the eyes really quick. Do not give them a hard time. Say, yes, we are going to work actively to fix those things, and then actively work to fix those things. You catch more flies with honey. They don't like to be battled. If you raise a red flag, they're coming back more often than anybody else. It's just what we've seen. Thankfully, it hasn't happened to any of our clients. However, this is things that we've seen on the internet, read about, and all that good stuff. I don't want you to have to deal with it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to reach out, feel free. Other than that, best of luck in your SEC exams. I hope they go as smoothly as this video did, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.